One of the most critical problems for space travel is the enormous distances at which objects are found. In the solar system alone, the planets are so far away that going from one another would take several years or even decades, while going to the closest stars would take centuries or thousands of years. A human being cannot carry out such a long journey, since we do not live that long. So a possible solution to the problem is cryogenic sleep or induced hibernation. This method, in which we could put astronauts into an artificial coma, putting them in capsules or chambers where they would remain asleep for decades or even centuries, and then wake up until they reach their destination. How possible is it to do this for modern science? Is there cryogenic sleep for space travel? Let's find out. How close are we to cryogenic sleep for space travel? According to NASA, with current technologies, it would take about 7 months to reach Mars, located at a distance of 480 million kilometers from Earth along its orbit. It would take a spacecraft about 8 years to reach Jupiter and 12 years to reach Pluto. If you've ever been bored on a long-distance flight that lasted many hours, imagine spending years waiting inside a small spaceship to reach your destination. It would be incredibly dull, right? How long would it take us to travel between galaxies? If we wanted to go to the Andromeda Galaxy, the closest large spiral galaxy, how long would it take? The distance to travel is 2,537,000,000 light-years, equivalent to about 22,833,000,000 kilometers. If we compare this figure with the 7 months needed to land on Mars, we can say that it would take us about 28 million years to reach the Andromeda Galaxy. This figure is not exact, but it can give us an idea of the time it would take to make intergalactic trips. Since no human can live that long and our consciousness cannot be transplanted into another biological or artificial body, how can we solve this problem? Many sci-fi movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Interstellar, or Passengers have already shown us one possible option: induced cryogenic sleep, also known as suspended animation. Although if we are strict, these two terms are not synonymous, since cryogenic sleep implies shallow temperatures, while suspended animation is usually achieved with only a few degrees of reduction. However, in popular media, the terms are often used interchangeably. Cryogenic sleep. Cryogenic sleep can be considered a kind of artificially induced human hibernation. Various animals can lower their metabolism in nature by lowering their body temperature. In this state of biostasis, they can spend months on limited food and water. For example, marmots could last 8 months in a hibernating state called torpor, during which their heart rate, metabolism, and body temperature are meager. After those months, their bodies warm up and they come back to life without suffering harm. Although humans cannot decide for themselves to hibernate naturally, medical technology may be able to induce this state. Several researchers are currently studying how to make humans either something resembling cryosleep. From a medical standpoint, this could help conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. Realistically, no technology can indefinitely put a person into induced hibernation. The closest thing to that is an induced coma, but a coma is not the same as a state of cryogenic sleep. The main difference is that in a coma, the person is entirely unconscious and can't feel what's happening around him. At the same time, their body continues to age at an average rate, in addition to their metabolism functioning normally and needing food to not die of dehydration or malnutrition. In contrast, in cryogenic sleep, the person enters a dream state, which is not the same as a coma, in addition to their metabolism slowing down or almost wholly stopping, which slows down the functions of the body and stops cell aging until they wake up again. Then your metabolism and vital signs return to normal and the aging process resumes. Currently, no technology can do this, but great efforts are being made to achieve it. An example is the cryopreservation of organs for transplantation. In this process, the organs are cooled to low temperatures in a cryoprotective liquid that helps prevent the formation of ice crystals and other damage. Organs can be stored for long periods and then thawed for transplantation into a recipient. This technique has succeeded for specific organs such as the liver and kidneys. Another example is the cryopreservation of human embryos and ovarian tissue. For long-term storage, embryos and tissue are cooled to low temperatures in liquid nitrogen. Embryo cryopreservation is a common technique in assisted fertility and has been used to preserve embryos for later use in reproduction. Ovarian tissue cryopreservation is used to preserve fertility in women who have received cancer treatment and may be an essential way to protect the fertility of female astronauts during extended space travel. Examples of cryogenic preservation. Although it sounds hard to believe, some companies are dedicated to preserving frozen human bodies to revive them in the future. These companies preserve the bodies of people who during their lives suffered a terminal illness and voluntarily decided that this company should preserve their bodies with the hope that in the future there will be a cure for their diseases. One of these companies is Alcor Life Extension Foundation, dedicated to the cryopreservation of whole human bodies and brains in liquid nitrogen at -196 degrees Celsius. The technique is performed in a vitrification process, which involves replacing bodily fluids with a cryoprotective solution before immersing the body in liquid nitrogen. The goal is to minimize any damage that may occur so that the body or brain can be revived. The Alcor Life Extension Foundation uses a vitrification technique called whole brain, which involves removing and replacing the blood with a cryoprotective solution. This solution protects the brain tissues from the formation of ice crystals, which can cause irreparable damage at the cellular level. The body or brain is placed in a liquid nitrogen tank where it is kept at -196 degrees Celsius. Another example is the Russian company Cryogenic, dedicated to the cryopreservation of human bodies and brains. Cryogenic use a similar technique. Cryogenic has cryopreserved more than 80 people since its founding in 2005 and has established an international agreement for transporting and storing bodies in other countries. Cryogenic is also involved in researching and developing technologies to improve cryopreservation's effectiveness and feasibility. As with Alcor Life Extension Foundation, cryopreservation of human bodies remains a controversial topic and the subject of much debate, as concerns have been raised about its feasibility and effectiveness, as well as the rights and dignity of human bodies after death. Advantages and disadvantages. Let's start with the advantages. First of all, astronauts could travel for months or years without feeling the passage of time in their bodies. Mental health is problematic when you spend so much time coping with other individuals in a confined space. This would also help the number of inputs they would require, since they would need less food and water if they are asleep most of the time. By carrying less cargo, a spacecraft would consume less fuel. Another advantage is that cryosleep chambers could more effectively protect astronauts from harmful cosmic radiation. On Earth, our planet's atmosphere and magnetic shield protect us. In space, however, astronauts are exposed to radiation. Lastly, cryosleep, compared to cryopreservation, can be reversed relatively easily simply by returning the astronaut to their average temperature without harming the body. Among the disadvantages, we find the most obvious of all: this technology does not yet exist. Second, hibernation does not entirely stop aging. With advanced technology, aging could be slowed down significantly, perhaps even for centuries. However, cryosleep alone will unfortunately not allow us to travel to the Andromeda Galaxy. We might hibernate for a few decades or centuries, but not millions of years. Are there researchers trying to get cold sleep for space travel? The answer is yes. Engineers and scientists from the aerospace company Spacework Enterprises are working on a project called Torpor-Inducing Transfer Habitat for Human Stasis to Mars for NASA. It is about using a medical practice called therapeutic hypothermia, TH, which is commonly applied in traumatic injuries. The metabolic rate is significantly reduced by cooling the body to only 5 to 7 degrees Celsius. It decreases between 5% and 7% for every 1 degree Celsius less core body temperature. The astronauts will go several 2-week cycles of suspended animations. During that time, they will receive intravenous feeding and their waste will be removed through catheters. SpaceWorks proposes designing a torpor-inducing Mars transfer habitat and an architectural level assessment to fully characterize the impact on Mars exploration. If this project is sustained in the future, the technology could emerge to make the project a reality. Cryogenic sleep. Die to be reborn. Many scientists have analyzed the different options for very long trips, and more than once, the option of taking corpses and reviving them in space has been put on the table. Yes, just as you heard, corpses. This is the cryopreservation we talked about a moment ago. If in the future we manage to develop the technology to revive bodies that have been frozen for years, this could be the solution to long-term trips. In science fiction, cryopreservation has been used as an effective and infallible method so that astronauts can travel for a long time in space without feeling the effects of the passage of time. Sadly, we still do not have this type of technology in real life. Considering what's already being developed for cryogenic sleep, the use of this technology in spaceflight might not be that far away. Space travel presents many difficulties. For some of them, we haven't found a solution yet. However, if we look back, even sailing presented several difficulties when the technology available was still in its infancy. Space travel technology only began a little less than over half a century ago. We're still beginning to explore the first challenges of this long road ahead. Beyond scientific limitations, cryogenic sleep for space travel also raises fundamental, ethical, and philosophical questions about the nature of life and death, and the meaning of human existence. Yet despite these complexities, it remains an inspiring and exciting subject, inviting us to imagine the future and dream of a world where human life can be preserved beyond present limits. It's a bold and exciting idea that inspires scientists, researchers, and dreamers worldwide to work together to reach new limits and build the foundation with which we will one day travel to the stars.